the new season of Stranger Things dropped on July 4th, and this is the third season in the long-running series. I'm going to talk a little bit about the basic gist of it, where we've come from since season 1 to present day, well, as far as 1985 goes anyway. And then I'm going to start getting into spoiler-heavy territory because there is a lot to cover in this new season. But first off, let's just get right into it. I loved the new season. Stranger Things Season 3, or just simply Stranger Things 3, starts in 1985, and they definitely pull a lot of references from that. They go everywhere from The Thing, to Back to the Future, to even classic movies like The Blob. They even make a mention of Daryl on one of the theater marquees. You know, honestly, I haven't thought about that movie in years. I can't even remember the last time I saw that film. I'm probably gonna have to go back and watch it now. Thanks, Stranger Things. And there's even a couple of surprising nods to other films which I'll get into later, because as I said, it's more of a spoiler territory area with that last one. Another year has passed for the kids. Things are starting to normal out, and with the rift closed up, they haven't felt the presence of the Mind Flayer since. It's good. We start getting into a little bit of the normal life. You get to see that creepy sociopath Billy hitting on Mike and Nancy's mom, and they start making that into a whole thing for the first 2 episodes. Instead of hooking up with the Wheeler's mom, Billy ends up making out with the Mind Flayer instead. And it's nasty. The special effects are really ramped up in this one, whereas the Mind Flayer was more of a smoke-like creature in season 2. He's the best way I put it, he's a lot more meaty in this one. But rats are mysteriously blowing up into tiny blobs after eating bags of fertilizer. Things are getting weird. Will is getting an uneasy feeling again. Whereas Will doesn't have powers like Eleven, he does have an upside down sense of sorts. Will's also a little different from the other kids. All the other kids are starting to grow up, get into relationships, find girls, starting getting away from childish things like Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, being trapped in the Upside Down for as long as he was, he's trying to catch up on lost time. And the other kids, while trying to be patient with him, just aren't really feeling it anymore. They got them puberties to deal with. The other main threat that the kids have to deal with are evil Russians hiding under our very shopping malls. Pfft, like that's a real thing anymore. Come on. Yeah. I have to admit, as someone who grew up in the 80s, the Starcourt Mall scenes really just hit me hard in the nostalgia days, and I just pine for days of Walden Books and Sam Goody, and they didn't show an arcade in there, but I'm sure there was one in there, and all the greatness of the uber commerce that was the American mall. But Russians are happening, the Mind Flayer's gaining strength, and things, as you naturally predict, will all go to hell very soon. Whereas I felt that season 2 wasn't the strongest of the 3 series, there still was a lot of good in that particular series. One of last season's biggest highlights was the growing friendship between Steve and Dustin, and they really carry it out in this one. I know social media is all about the hashtag friendship goals. That is friendship goals. Stranger Things already has a large ensemble cast, but that doesn't stop them from a few new additions. Becoming a regular player in this season is Lucas's little sister, Erica. She is hilarious, and she delivers easily the best line in the entire season. That line was pure gold. I'm so glad that did not get spoiled for me. And Steve has a new female co-worker at Scoops Ahoy, a girl named Robin. I really like the characters of Erica and Robin added into this season. They felt natural, they were fun, they were solid additions. Writers could definitely take notes on how to introduce new characters into a season. I did feel bad for Steve and Robin as they had to dress up like the Cracker Jack Kid for every single episode. What an unfortunate fashion choice, and I thought Hot Dog on a Stick was bad. Another great character was the Russian scientist, Dr. Alexei. Yes, I know that all the Russians in this series and in the era were evil, but Dr. Alexei, if he doesn't win your heart, you are clinically dead inside. It's so funny that the whole season spent its time hyping up that Russia is this great enemy and yet making Dr. Alexei one of its most wholesome characters. It was a very interesting juxtaposition. And now we're starting to get into spoiler territory because there's a lot to unpack, and I can only go so much farther without really getting in all those plot details. So at this point forward, consider yourself spoiled. As I mentioned, Dr. Alexei was a great character. That's when they chose to kill him off was probably one of the saddest moments in the entire series. If you thought Bob Newby's death in season 2 was sad, this one was just like, oh my god, no, no, and I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming, that they had a Terminator like Russian. It was a little bit of an Ivan Drago / Terminator. Russian Terminator went out and killed poor Dr. Alexei, and that was like the saddest moment. That just made me tear up and was emotionally awful. Congratulations for making a character that didn't even speak English throughout the series, and they didn't really use that many subtitles except when he and the conspiracy theorist were talking to each other, and that was another nice relationship as well. And unfortunately, some of the characters don't get as much to do as I would have liked to have seen them take care of during the episodes, but I think that's also an interesting counterpoint, because you like these characters so much and you get so invested in all of them. They really don't have any bad hero characters in this. Each one is interesting and each one brings something to offer. And then the one episode where everybody reunites, it's like one of those final episodes of season 2. Everyone gets together and it's one big reunion. It's these little random side snippets of conversations, and they're so random and back and forth, but they do this really awesome job of not only catching each other up, but catching the viewer up of what's been going on the last few episodes. Again, just solid writing, some really clever dialogue tricks. As far as the Mind Flayer goes, he's nasty. The special effects in this are great. They really did a lot more in terms of camera angles, more of a cinematic feel. The Mind Flayer is basically possessing people like pod people, and it's just nasty when he decides that he is done with all these hosts that he has created. They do a couple other interesting things. At one point, some of the Mind Flayer meat, I guess you want to call it, whatever you want. He's like a meaty, slimy thing in this one that kind of does like a Terminator 2. He splits apart, comes back together, and at one point, some of that gets into Eleven's leg and infects her, and she is in an immense amount of pain as it's crawling around. You see that, but then they manage to pull the meat chunk out of her and hop her steps on it. At that point, she becomes powerless. I felt that was interesting too, because you've had 2 seasons of Eleven using her superpowers, and in this one, at the beginning of the season, I mean, literally she's just waving her hand and the monster's just going back and forth and up and down, and she just slams it, and it doesn't really get too much of an advantage, but at least enough to discourage it and have it scamper off to lick its wounds and try again later. But at this point, she's rendered completely powerless. And now they can't rely on her special abilities anymore, so they have to come up with different improvised plans. Good job on not falling back on the same thing for a 3rd time. They tried something new and it worked, and I liked it. And it gave the characters more to do. One of the solutions was probably one of the most interesting, funny, heartwarming, bizarre, strangest moments. Dustin spends the entire season trying to sort of convinced his friends that he actually met a girlfriend at camp, and no one believes him. I mean, that's another 80s trope. Her name is Susie, and it turns out she's real. She has a mathematical equation that can help save and unlock this code that they need to get the keys to blow up the generator. Again, it's a long plot thing, but basically Hopper and Joyce are trying to blow up the portal to unleash the Upside Down yet again, and they have one chance, one code, and they need it, and they don't have it like they thought they did. In order to get the code, Dustin has to sing with Susie the theme from the Neverending Story. And this is juxtaposed against scenes with the Mind Flayer chasing after half the kids, and Dustin and Susie singing their hearts out to this. The kids can sing. I mean, my God, these kids are so super talented. They have picked some of the best young actors that I've seen since some of those early 80s movies, because all those 80s movies were kids movies, you know, all these enterprising young kids having great adventures, and they acted well and they did their roles well, and they carried an entire movie. It was so bizarre because it's such a happy, uplifting song, and you see this horrible Lovecraftian meat monster chasing after the kids, and Dustin and Susie are belting out the Neverending Story. Of course, at the end, in order to close the Upside Down portal, there has to be a tragic heroic sacrifice. In this case, it's Hopper. Is he dead? Is he not? There's going to be a season 4. I guess we'll find out. In the meantime, though, he left Eleven a not really intended to be a goodbye letter, but you're growing up and I have to accept that. At least try to be gentle on me letter. And it was basically David Harbour's monologue going over this, and man, that just hit. That was a very emotional monologue scene that just, you know, it's one of those things I've seen other commentaries online where it's just like, man, it's just kind of hit that point in life where it just really resonates, and yeah, I'd say that carries over with me as well. It's like the fellowship has been broken and everyone starts going their separate ways. Will it stay that way? Probably not. As I said, they're talking about a season 4 and probably a season 5. They will probably carry this out all the way until the kids end up graduating high school and going to college. Of course, there were one or two, oh, I wish that had worked out sort of things, and because there are certain 80s tropes that were pretty standard through any movie, TV show at the time, and one of the biggest things was it seemed like Steve and Robin were going to get together at one point. All the elements were there, and I think it's interesting because Steve himself is a kind of one of those subversions, and it's like, I know the whole subvert your expectations thing, which is thrown out so easily and so poorly justified to make stupid written decisions. They subvert expectations here, but it's not stupid, it's just kind of unfortunate because, as I said, Steve himself is a subverted expectation. He starts out as kind of a dick in the first season, and then he becomes pretty cool in the second one, and he's really cool in the third one. And you just kind of want the guy to have a win. He just wants to be with somebody, and he's grown up and matured, and he's no longer the jerk-ass kid in high school that he was in season 1. He still has that magnificent hair. He probably has the greatest hair in all of modern television then and now. That kid's hair could win a Nobel Peace Prize, as far as I'm concerned. It seemed like he and Robin would get together, but it just didn't work out. Robin's interests lie elsewhere, and they handled it well, and which I thought was surprising given the era, but it was handled well, and it was just kind of like an oh okay, and that's the best way they could have handled it. It was just kind of an oh okay, and it moved on, and you know, if anything, Steve has another new friend, and like a good friend that will have his back when he really needs it, and that's cool. I was really impressed with both new and old characters. They tried to give Billy a little bit more background depth, which I appreciated as well. He literally was the 80s trope of jerk-ass psycho in season 2. I don't feel like they redeemed him, but they made his behavior a little bit more justifiable, and you could understand where and how he was coming from better, and when he had his noble sacrifice in the end, at least it did feel a little noble. All in all, I'm very happy with Stranger Things 3. It was a great season. It was well worth it. A lot of emotional highs and lows, a lot of great 80s references, which really kind of hit me right there and kind of made me miss those days with my friends. This season definitely is a lot more focused. It's a lot more fun, and it's a lot scarier, and the stakes feel a little bit bigger and more real, especially because it's not only Russians and monsters, it's them growing up, which is its own scary challenge as well. Well, let me know what you think of Stranger Things 3. There was definitely a lot of great theories and ideas, especially this one does the Marvel-esque stinger at the end. They don't explicitly say that the American hidden behind the cage door is Hopper. They don't not say it either, but apparently the Russians have gotten their hands on a Demogorgon, so they did pull a few things from their time with that portal. Who knows what 1986 will bring, and I will definitely be there along the way. When it comes time to revisit Season 3, I will definitely be picking up on home video. If they're going to make the covers this cool, I can't wait to see what they do with Season 3. So I will continue on that particular materialistic journey. Anyway, thanks so much for checking out the video, and as always, I will see you that next time. Take care.